Hi, Mr. Ko here, and today's topic we're going to cover is proportions. And our goal for today, we have two of them. We're going to use cross products to identify proportions, then we're going to use cross products to solve proportions. And our California standard for today is Algebra and Functions 4.2. So we've got two vocabulary words that we're going to be covering for today. And the first one that we're going to be covering is proportion, and we have two ratios that are equal. And then the second word that we're going to be covering is cross products, and that's a really important one. So make sure that you understand this part. And that's a cross products are in a proportion that makes it equal. Okay, so cross products in a proportion are equal. All right, so let's go and figure out what that kind of means. So here we have two ratios here, okay, and we're going to use cross products to identify the proportion and to make sure that it's correct. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cross multiply. So we're going to do a thing called cross products or cross multiply. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this and just cross multiply here. So I'm going to rewrite that 2 times 27, because that's what cross products mean. Product means to multiply. And then I'm going to go ahead and cross product this way. And that's going to be 9 times 6. And it really doesn't matter if you have them backwards or forwards, so you can kind of switch them off. But at this point, this is your basic setup of a proportion. So you're going to cross multiply, and then now you have these two numbers which I got here, and you have these two numbers which I got here, and I'm going to go ahead and finish it up. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and compare the answers when you're done. So let's go ahead and finish up here. 9 times 6 is going to give me 54. And then 2 times 27 is also going to give me 54. So this is telling me this is, yes, proportional. Okay? And that's it. You cross multiply and you check answers. Alright, let's go ahead and do the same thing with this one. So let's cross multiply here. So I'm going to have 5 times 15. And then on this side, I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. 7 times 10. Then let's go ahead and finish it up. 7 times 10 is going to give me 70. And we're going to see if that is equal to this side. And 5 times 15 is actually 75. So no, this is not proportional. So we need to say no, not proportional. Okay? So let's just recap real fast. We're going to cross multiply or cross products. Then we're going to compare the two answers, and then we're just going to figure out if the answers are the same, then it makes them proportional. If the answers are different, then they're not proportional. All right? So that leads me to the question of, how do you know if the ratios are proportional? Just like that. All right, so now, knowing how to do that sets you up for what we're going to be doing for the majority of the proportions that you're going to see. Okay? So here I have this, and I'm going to go ahead and set it up the exact same way. We're going to set up your proportion. So let's start it off again. We're going to go ahead and, that's going to be x times 10 is equal to 12 times 5. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve them both, just like what we did on the first one. So here, 12 times 5 is going to give me 60. And again, we're trying to decide or figure out what our variable is in order to make them proportional. So that's going to give me 10 times x, or 10x. Okay? And I know we've seen this before. This is your basic one-step equation. So how do I isolate that variable? How do I isolate that x? So all we're going to do here now is we are going to just divide both sides by 10. By doing so, I'm isolating that variable, so that gives me x right here. That's what's left. 60 divided by 10, that's it. So our answer to this of what's going to make these two ratios proportional is if I put 6 in here, and that's going to give me a proportion. All right, let's try it again with this one. So first of all, cross multiply. 24 times 8. And again, it really doesn't matter where the x is, because it's going to fall into one of these 4 positions. X times 3. Alright, let's go ahead and solve this out. X times 3 is going to give us 3x. And again, I just normally write it 3x just because that's the normal format of how when you take something, a number and a variable, when you multiply them, it just goes number first, then letter. Okay? And that's going to be equal to, and 24 times 8, that's going to give me 32. Carry the 3, 2 times 6 is 16, so it's 192. A little bit big, but we can still solve this. So if I divide both sides by 3, because I'm trying to isolate that x, my x is going to be, 3 divided by 3 is 1, we have x left. 192 divided by 3, that's going to give me 6, and then 4. Alright, and again, just so that we understand what this means, 64, if I place 64 back in here, 24 thirds is the same as 64 over 8. Okay? They're both proportional. They're the same equal ratio. So after we're done here, the question I'm going to ask you is, and you should be able to figure this out, is I want you to describe how to solve a proportion. Okay? Just like what we did here. Alright, so what happens when you have a word problem? Now the word problem for a proportion is one of the hardest things to kind of to work on. However, if you set it up correctly, you should be just fine. So what I normally ask is, what are the two things that we are, the two separate things that we're looking at, the two ratios or the two rates? If you look right here, we have gigabytes and we have time or minutes. Okay, so we have something and we have time. So I'm just going to go ahead and just say, let's go and set them up. So now, Aaron is downloading a file that is 32 gigs. Okay, so 32 gigs, and it takes 3 minutes to download 12 gigs. So we know that for 12 gigs, it's going to take 3 minutes. So how I'm going to set this up is, we're going to go ahead and talk about it. This is going to be your gigs, so which means my other number is 12 gigs. And notice that I do set up the numbers on the top. They're the same type of unit of measure, gigs to gigs. Okay? Then my bottom is going to be, of course, the minutes. Now, it actually tells you how to set this up. It takes 3 minutes to download 12 gigs. So the 3 minutes belong to this 12 gigs because it took 3 minutes to do 12. Now, how much longer is it going to take? Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. That's our x. Okay? So, let's go and figure this part out. Go ahead and cross multiply, or cross product. And we're going to take 32 times 3. And we're going to make this equal to 12 times x. Oops. Should I use red? Okay? Finish this up. 12x equals 2, and that's going to give us 6 right here, and then 9. And then we're going to go ahead and simplify this part. We're going to isolate. Divide by 12. Divide by 12. Our answer is going to be x is equal to 96 over 12. That's 8. So let's go back with this question. It takes 3 minutes to download 12 gigs, so that kind of gives us the rate at how we're going. So for every 3 minutes, there's 12 gigs. So Aaron is downloading a file that's 32 gigs. How much longer will it take? Well, for him to download 32 gigs, it's going to take him 8 minutes. So once we do this part, the hardest part is that setup. And so make sure that you see how I've set things up. I set it up with the same type of measurement on the top and the same type of measurement on the bottom, because my answer of 8 minutes is how long it's going to take to download 32 gigs. Okay? So the final question I have for this part is, how do you set up a word problem proportion? So let's go ahead and recap. So to recap proportions, the basics of it, we're going to set up a proportion. Okay? And I'm just going to go and do a quick setup. So you have A over B is equal to C over D, and that's your basic setup. Okay? Now you're going to have your cross products. So if you cross multiply them, you're going to have A times D is equal to C times B. And again, these could flip-flop in any order because it really doesn't matter. If I take A times D or D times A, it's still going to give me the same exact answer. Okay. Depending on which one is my variable, we're going to isolate it, and then finally we're going to simplify the answer at the end. So, again, this is your basic recap of your proportions. Alright, if you'd like to see more videos, you can just go to www.youtube.com/user/TychoDad. And thanks again for watching.